My holistic sprays in the summertime go totally herbal. I have the neem oil, I have the seaweed, but now I'm also going to start making fermented teas of 3 particular herbs. Those plants are stinging nettle, the comfrey, and horsetail. Both stinging nettle and horsetail, at this point in the season when seed starts to set, start to get much higher levels of silica in the plant. That silica in turn is very important to building the cuticle defense of the leaf and of the fruitlet. This is the waxy exudates that cover the surface of the cells of the leaf and the fruit. And this is where various summer rots and aesthetic diseases like sooty blotch and fly speck feed. So if I have a strong cuticle, I'm going to see less of some of these aesthetic diseases, and of course the rots can actually ruin the fruit itself. I have various spots around this herb farm where we can gather many of these plants. Nettle pops up on its own in many places. This is the time of year, seeds are just starting to set. This is stinging nettle, I mentioned that. A lot of people are going to wear gloves to harvest nettle, but we're on film, we're doing it live, we're going to do it with bare hands. Stinging nettle has these little hairs that inject formic acid into your skin, which can cause a kind of a hot irritation, a scratchy feeling. I don't mind a little sense of that. That's not an issue for me. I cut the plant further down, nearer to the stalk. Going to gather all the ones that are in seed. And then just to fit it in the bucket, cut it into shorter pieces. But still basically lots of big pieces. And I'm going to fill that bucket with nettle. Another bucket I'm going to fill with comfrey. Now comfrey I'm gathering specifically because it's very high in calcium. And fruit cells need a lot of calcium to give integrity to the fruit. So applications of foliar calcium every 2 weeks is quite common in commercial orcharding. We're going to do it on a homegrown scale in an herbal fashion, something we can do on our farm with our own plants. Very vibrant looking plant, just what we want. Again, I'll fill the bucket with plant material, and then we'll go up to the house and do some brewing. The third plant in our herbal summertime trilogy for orchard health use is horsetail. Now horsetail is a plant that goes back to the time of the dinosaurs. This is a plant that used to be some 200 feet tall, much like a tree. Probably the plant that makes up a lot of the petroleum reserves of this planet. Horsetail comes up in the spring. The male part is first. Looks a lot like a mushroom. That gives off spores for fertilizing the growth of more of the plant. The female part comes up. All the fronds at that point are a lot more vertical. And then as we come into early summer, the fronds start to fall down. And these are very brittle. And you can almost feel the silica content in the plant itself. When those fronds are horizontal, that's when silica levels are optimum for orchard use. Horsetail is a plant that can be found in wet places, ditches, marshes, on the edges of lots of roads. This is not that uncommon. It also has a real affinity for the back side of a foundation wall, which has been backfilled with sand. Horsetail likes sandy soil, a lot of silica and sand. And I just come along here behind my house and snip everything off right at the base. I may not take all the stragglers, but the plant itself is all set to come back next year. And I'm going to fill that third bucket with horsetail. There's one last gourmet touch we can add to these herbal brews, and that is the scapes of the garlic plant. When you grow hardneck garlic, just at about this time of year, in mid to late June, the scape comes up, which is the seed stalk, and these are cut off so that the bulb is going to get larger. For orchard use, garlic has an important place. In herbal medicine, you learn that if you want to get garlic into a toddler to help it deal with flu, what have you, and that toddler doesn't want to eat garlic, which is often the case, one of the things that can be done is you can rub the bottom of the feet. And within a minute or so, you'll start to smell garlic up on the breath coming through the pores of the skin. That's very indicative of what garlic is good at. The organosulfate compounds in garlic have the ability to help other constituents pass through a membrane. And so I'm going to include these garlic scapes in the tops of my tea buckets because I'm going to want that effect when I spray the trees. Brewing an herbal tea for orchard use is about making the constituents in these plants, the calcium in the comfrey, the silica in the nettle, and in the horsetail, bioavailable to the foliage cells of the leaf. And to do that, it requires a fermentation process to start to break down the plant material so that when we spray it out there on the plant surface into the tree canopy, it's going to be absorbed more readily by the leaf cells. So we'll top off each bucket with some garlic. What I like to do is boil some water, which I'm going to pour into each one of these buckets in order just to facilitate the breaking down of the plant material. Then I'm going to top everything off and let it sit for 5 to 7 days out by my compost. After that time, I'm going to strain each tea, and each one of these 5-gallon buckets of the 3 individual herbs I'm using are going to be put into a 100-gallon spray tank mix. As far as a backpack sprayer goes, you might use a pint of each tea. There's really no particular dose here as to what's right or what's wrong. This is just the volume that I use in a 100-gallon spray tank, which pretty much covers about an acre of my trees at a time.